You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Good evening. My name is Peter Basserman. I'm chairman of the Branford Inland Wetland Commission. I'd like to call the meeting of the Branford Inland Wetland Commission to order. It is Thursday, September 9th. It is 7:01 in the evening. We have a quorum of commissioners. We may have an additional commissioner joining of late. Can we do a roll call? Peter Basserman, present.
Commissioner Begemon, present.
Commissioner Greenwald, present.
Commissioner Melissa Papantonis, present.
Commissioner Kraus, present.
Okay. Let's see, just for introductory purposes, we conduct these meetings and we have regulations that we abide by. They are listed in the town's website. The Connecticut statutes provide that authorization for those regulations. We are here strictly to talk about wetland issues for members of the public, to the extent that you have concerns about particular areas that come up this evening regarding different applications. Things associated with wetlands are certainly germane for discussion. Please, there will be an opportunity to provide that input for the commission. Generally, we review the item. The applicant sometimes makes a presentation. Commissioners then will ask questions. And once satisfied the questions from the commission, then we allow for additional questions. You'll have to introduce yourself when asking those questions, because it is recorded this evening and we want those questions to be in perpetuity in terms of their recording. First up this evening, we have some minutes for approval.
Mr. Chairman, Richard Greenwald, I'll make a motion that we approve the July 18th meeting minutes as revised.
Okay, let's see, I know I had a question on one of them.
Is there a second to that motion?
Commissioner Begemon, second.
Thank you.
I had just a comment on page 3 of the revised July 8th minutes. Under 3, public hearing. I think there's a verb missing in the second to last sentence. See what I'm talking, Abby?
No, sorry.
Page 3 of the July 8th revised minutes. Under public hearing, second to last sentence. Commissioners blank, why the application
Commissioners
wasn't
asked why, maybe.
Yeah. Thank you.
So with that amendment, is the the motion to approve accepting of that amendment?
Yes. Commissioner Begemon.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Commissioner Greenwald, abstain.
Okay, wait a minute. So we have Commissioner Greenwald abstaining. Anybody else? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, everybody. Okay. Next up, we have the August, what is it? August 12th meeting. for approval?
Can I just ask a few questions of Abby? On page 2, under B, the second bullet, when it's talking about impervious surfaces, it says, commissioners asked if they had considered using an impervious surface for the pavement areas. I think we were talking about non-impervious, right?
Yes. Sorry, that was probably supposed to be pervious surfaces.
Okay.
Yes.
And then 3 lines down, the same thing. It says impervious, but I think you mean
Yeah.
pervious.
Okay.
And then on page 3, the site walk in the minutes says September 2nd, but I think it was September 9.
It was originally scheduled for September 2nd, so that does reflect the meeting. It was rescheduled though.
Oh, okay.
If that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had.
Sorry, can you just repeat where you said the second impervious?
In that
change
same
was?
in that same paragraph, that second
Okay.
bullet. You see it?
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting on August 12th be approved.
Commissioner Begemon, second.
Incorporating those changes that Commissioner Begerman articulated.
Yes, I'll amend my motion to state that it's to include the revisions just discussed.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Commissioner Grant abstain.
Okay.
Commissioner Boda, I'll abstain. I missed the revisions.
Okay. We now have the first application for review. Inland Wetland 210605, 26 and 28 Old New England Road, construction of a single-family home. And then it indicates an application is withdrawn. Oh, what am I reading the right one? Yeah.
Yes. Jamie Frederick and the
By
Wetland
the way,
agent.
the meeting agenda, which is posted, is the meeting agenda file on September 8, 2021. That's a revised agenda. Okay, Jamie, you have a comment here about the application withdrawn?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. The application was withdrawn. I believe the applicant intends to resubmit once they get some of the additional information that was discussed. I think they're hoping for October, but we will see.
Great. Next up is Inland Wetland 210801, 175 Cherry Hill Road, which is the plans for an 11-lot subdivision. And part and parcel of that discussion is a review of the fee. Is the applicant present this evening?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Jamie, would you be able to allow me to screen share?
Yes.
Thank you.
The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I'm waiting to screen share to make it all.
So you cannot at the moment.
No, ma'am.
How about now?
Yep. Okay. Did everyone can see my screen now?
Yeah.
Commissioner Grant, yes.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James DeMeo, a professional engineer at Giuliano Associates. We're located at 405 Main Street in Wallingford, Connecticut. I'm here on behalf of BC Investment Properties with the application for 175 Cherry Hill Road. The 175 Cherry Hill Road is kind of sandwiched in between Autumn Ridge Road right here and Cherry Hill Road on the other side of the property. The existing property is comprised of 12.4 acres and has an existing abandoned structure and a couple other structures that have since fallen down and just in disrepair at this point. The remainder of the site is predominantly comprised of, some wooded areas and brush. There is also a small, as we know from the sidewalk, it's like a gravel/dirt path driveway that led up from Cherry Hill Road to what used to be the existing house. In terms of wetlands on the property, there are 3 small ponds located just to the east of the property. The soil scientist, George Logan, or we had the soil scientist, George Logan, go out there and prepare a report for you. It's dated August 10th, 2021. In that report, he does state that he did observe these wetlands, and he called them 3 interconnected man-made farm ponds. And he did note that, again, these are off the property. One of the other areas of concern that was brought up by your enforcement officer was a swale that is depicted on the map. It's kind of hard to see with these contours, but essentially there is a little swale here. Mr. Logan did go out there and investigate, and he came to the conclusion that there were no wetland soils in this area. It's just some erosion just over time. Now, what we are proposing is
James, can I interrupt real quick? Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I just also wanted to identify, I took another look at the soils report today, and the soil scientist did indicate that there's an off-site wetland to the west of the property as well.
Yes.
So I just want to make the commissioners aware of that. If you want, we can pull up the wetlands report real quick and show you the area he was indicating. Otherwise, I'll let the applicant continue with his presentation.
Commissioner Bassman, just a question as a follow-up to that. How far from the property is that wetland identified?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, the report didn't identify a distance, but they did point out an area on an aerial image and indicated that it is predominantly dominated by Phragmites. So it's kind of somewhat visible the area could be. Do you want me to pull up?
Do you have an estimate of the distance?
That area would be approximately, I don't know, probably about 80 feet off the property line in this direction, approximately right where my cursor is.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. So that covers essentially the existing conditions of the site. Moving on to the actual proposal, what's being proposed is an 11-lot subdivision. And this is essentially the lot layout. As you can see here, this line is based upon the 3 man-made ponds to the east. This is the 100-foot upland review area. There will be proposed properties in that area. However, we are not currently proposing any activity in this area. We are showing, I will note, we are showing a house very close to that. That is just for, feasibility. At this point, it's oversized, but just showing that the lot can handle a house this big. I believe it's 40 by 80. So there will be no activities, including grading. So these are the upper lots coming in off Autumn Ridge, because that's how we will access the property. As you can tell, so this is the 100-foot upland review area again. In this area, the lots stop even before then. So there won't be any disturbance there. And as we go further down towards the end of the cul-de-sac, this, again, here is the 100-foot upland review area, which does get very close to our proposed Lot 7 house. But again, this this lot is not going to be, or this house is not going to be necessarily developed at this size. So, and I believe that the intention is when this lot is developed, we will be back in front of you for that specific lot.
This is Commissioner Batson. Can you highlight that particular lot 7 with the cursor?
Yes. So it's right here. I could try to, oh, here we go. Will this let me do it? No, that didn't let me do it. Yeah, it's in this right-hand corner. Here, I'll try to zoom in a little bit more for you. Oh. Mm-hmm. So lot 7 is right here. So this is the lot that I know is the closest. Now, what we
Commissioner Kraus, can I ask a question about that lot 7?
Absolutely.
It looks like you have a depiction where the house could be in 2 different places, unless I'm reading the map wrong. But that's where it would be. And I heard you make a statement that said the house wouldn't be that large. How are you sure that the house isn't going to be that large? If this is what's on the map, I would think that this is what we have to consider.
This would be the maximum. So what I'm currently showing pictorially is the maximum footprint for any house on these lots.
Okay.
So anything that gets constructed is going to be smaller. So it's just feasibility.
So just for curiosity's sake, what do you expect the average square footage of these houses to be?
That hasn't been fully determined yet.
Okay.
At least it hasn't been relayed to me. I know the intention is to essentially match what is existing on Autumn Ridge.
Okay.
They want to blend this subdivision in with that one.
Make it look like one neighborhood.
Correct. That's the intention.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And the house, there is only one on this lot, and I'm trying to move my cursor around it for you. This is the actual house.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I see it. Thanks.
Yep. So in order to handle any increase of stormwater due to our development, we are proposing 2 detention basins. So I'm going to go to the northern one first. Okay. So as we come in off Autumn Ridge, there will be a detention basin in this corner. This is essentially the northern corner of the property. This detention basin, I do have a little cross section for you. Essentially, we'll have a 3-to-1 max slope for any of the sides of the detention basin, so it won't be any steeper than that. It will be a grass line detention basin. How it is currently designed is there will be an outlet control structure with a 12-inch pipe coming out of it, and that will open up to a flared end and essentially handle up to the 100-year storm without going over a weir that we have built into the structure. So what we did is we also have a weir built into this detention basin that the water will not get to unless we, for some reason, got a 500-year storm or something above and beyond normal design standards. So that way that the berm doesn't fail and cause damage or anything like that. So it's designed to be able to handle additional flows without causing any issues or damage to the detention basin itself.
And just one more question. I'm sorry. Who will make sure that pipe doesn't get clogged? We've seen a lot of pipes around town that are put in and then they break down and they get clogged. And we've had other developments where we've had some issues with that happening where it did spill over the top. So how is that going to be handled?
So as of right now, we're still in talks with where who's going to be responsible for the open space. So what this project has is it has a lot of open space on it. So I'll make it easier.
And this particular drainage system is on that open space?
Correct. So what we'll have is, so we have the 11 lots, and then we have a western open space area, which will include these 2 detention basins, and we're going to have an eastern open space area.
But right now we're talking about the detention basin on the western open space area, correct?
Correct. And both of them are technically within that area.
Okay.
And the RWA does own the property. So there's either talks of the open space being deeded to the RWA or the town. That has not been finalized yet. But that water, or that detention basin, is handling what will become a town-owned road.
So that it will be the town's responsibility to maintain it, is pretty much, I guess, what you're saying?
Depending on how everything continues to shake out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Commissioner Basserman, when do you expect those discussions with RWA to conclude?
I expect a lot of that to be worked out through the planning and zoning process. By the end of the planning and zoning process, that all that is going to be determined.
Yeah, I don't want to get the cart before the horse here, but it would seem to me that becomes an important element in our deliberations.
In terms of, so my thinking is, or my understanding is that detention basin is going to be handling the town, the stormwater from the town road, or what will eventually become the town road. So that would, I believe that ultimately is whose responsibility it will ultimately become. The open space is not going to remain under one owner, if that makes sense, one entity. So the current property owner is not going to just retain the open space. There's no intention of that. Nor is it going to become like an association or anything.
So this is Commissioner Kraus again. So I get that you believe that that's what's going to happen with this, but when will you know if the town will ultimately take this over? I guess that'll be after your water company deliberations. But I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that during this probably several year construction process, you'll be responsible for maintaining that and making sure that it's kept clear and the water goes where it's supposed to go?
Yeah, during the construction process, until everything's finalized and essentially deeded over, yes, it would be the responsibility of the developer.
Okay.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. In my experience, generally the stormwater basins are either they end up being the responsibility of the town, if that's what the town agrees to, or an association is formed to be responsible for them. I'm not aware of detention basins on actual open space because generally open space is passive. So my guess is that if Regional Water Authority were to take the open space, they wouldn't take the actual basin areas, but I could be wrong. But it also seems like a good time to point out that I've not received comments regarding the stormwater management from the town engineer yet. So I do not know what his thoughts are on the drainage system.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Basserman. We've got a few open questions here. I don't want to stop the presentation, et cetera, but obviously there's concern amongst some of the commissioners regarding this overall water treatment on the roads and this detention basin. Anything you can do to accelerate those deliberations coming to a close would be appreciated.
Yep, understood.
This is Commissioner Boda. I actually, before you move on, wanted to understand a little bit more about the outlet structure that is on, I can't even see which map I'm on. because I've zoomed in quite large, but where you have the outlet structure that would hold your 100-year, 50-year storm.
Mhm.
And it's a side view. It's the section AB Northern Detention Basin. So I'm looking at that and I'm wondering, so the outlet structure is at that top blue line. And you're saying that the water is not going to go into that structure until it hits an elevation of 164.03.
So what in this structure here, so this is the northern one.
Yeah, can you zoom way in so that everybody can see the details on that structure?
Yep. So yeah, unfortunately, I apologize. I did not call this out. What there will be is there will be a 6-inch diameter hole at elevation 162. So during the 2-year storm, it will, all that water will remain inside this detention basin. At the 10-year storm, the water elevation gets just above 162. Well, at 162 is where there will be a 6-inch diameter opening inside or on the side of this outlet control structure. So that's when water is going to start coming out. And then that's going to be the restricting factor as more and more water builds up and we get more and more intense storms up until we hit the 100-year storm, which is where the water essentially gets to the top of that outlet control structure.
And then at above, and then you've got how much room? So like the 2 or 500 year, it will overtop.
So at the 100 year, so anything more than the 100
overtop
years,
over the berm.
It'll never overtop the berm. So what we have is the top of the berm is at 165.03, and we have an emergency spillway at 164.03. So at the 100-year storm, it literally gets to that emergency spillway elevation.
Is that kind of hashed line? Where is the spillway denoted?
So it's right here on this profile.
Can you do it again? I was looking at my own map.
Sorry, I can't highlight it. So it's
No, that's
right
okay.
here.
I see it, high water spillway.
Will that work? No, it didn't work. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, right there. So now I can't delete that. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. Yeah. So it's right there. Is the intention? It is where that spillway is depicted, at least on the profile. And that spillway will be a stone line spillway to help again prevent erosion if the water were to ever get to that point. And the southern detention base, so that's the northern detention basin.
Let me just ask another question before you move on. So then below the 10-year storm, that water will be detained and not infiltrate, or are you, will that
It'll infiltrate.
the bottom of the basin allow for infiltration of the 1 and 2 year storm?
It will infiltrate, yes. And we're being conservative with our infiltration rates. Just essentially just saying it'll dry out.
So wait, there was 2 different things. So when you say that you've been conservative with the infiltration rates, does that mean that you're estimating, or have you actually done a perk test for the bottom of that basin?
So no perk test has been done. I'm going using soil data and also reports from the soil scientists and things like that. And then basically I'm using an infiltration rate of, I believe it's 1 inch in 60, which again, as long as there's soil there, it'll go.
And that's true for the other detention basin as well, that
Yes,
you're going off of.
Correct. So soil maps and reports and as well as the soil scientists.
This is Commissioner Begamon. So any water that goes out is going to go over that stone, anything that goes out is going to drain onto stone,
So
or only the spillway?
the spillway is there and designed there for emergency purposes.
Right.
If we get like 3 hurricanes in a row and get, unheard of flooding, that's the only time that'll ever be utilized.
So the water, otherwise the water, if it goes up to the 10-year, what is it discharging onto?
At that point, there's a 6-inch diameter hole in the outlet control structure, which then leads to a 12-inch pipe.
Right.
And that 12-inch pipe will has a flared end at the end and will discharge out. It basically just daylights.
Onto what is growing there, or grass or rock or whatever.
Correct. Just to give you an idea, the 100-year storm out of that pipe is only 1.26 CFS. Okay. Any more questions on the northern one before I move on? Okay. So the southern detention basin is at the end of the cul-de-sac. Essentially, this one's set up the exact same way. Again, a very conservative infiltration rate. We have the outlet control structure. Again, an emergency spillway, which will not get utilized unless something catastrophic happens. And we have a pipe with a flared end. The opening in the side of this outlet control structure is actually at the base of the detention basin, which is again a 6-inch diameter opening, which then flows into a 12-inch pipe.
This is Commissioner Kraus. I have a question about the Southern Detention Basin. And I'm looking at your map and I'm seeing that you're moving the path that we walked up to the right, if I'm correct.
Correct.
We walked up the path that would go right at the corner of the Southern Detention Basin. When we were walking, there was quite a bit of erosion on that path. It was really rutted with all the runoff. So it appears to me that because of the steep grade of the property, this southern detention pond, and once you put in the cul-de-sac and build the houses and all the driveways, and there's more impervious surfaces, this southern detention pond is probably going to get a lot more water than that area gets now. But even now, that driveway, that pathway that we walked up was very rutted. So the water must have really come streaming down there in the previous storms. So when that water leaves that southern detention pond, is it going to impact those wetlands that you spoke about earlier?
No. So too far. The 3 ponds on the eastern side of the property are located over here. I don't know if you can see my cursor.
Right. But earlier you spoke about some wetlands and a soil report from down below where we're talking about the water from these detention basins running off.
Correct. The other wetlands that were brought up were in this area over here. So this water will not, it's not going to flow in that direction. It's going to flow kind of in that direction, but not towards those wetlands because those wetlands are off to the side. Further north than where it's going to flow.
Okay, and that's just looks like a much smaller road than a normal standard size road, like pretty much a 1-lane road?
Yes, yes. So this is designed as just an emergency access road. So,
But there's nothing that's going to prevent people from driving in and out if that gets flooded and things like that.
the road wouldn't get flooded.
But I'm thinking about the bottom of that road, if all that water comes down there.
Down here?
Yeah, and over to where we were parking our cars yesterday.
Yeah, so we parked over here. That water, that water won't flow towards where we parked the cars. It'll actually flow in the other direction. So
to the water company property.
Yeah, it's going to flow down and then north. It is kind of the direction that it's flowing, not down Cherry Hill, because there is a high point at the base of where we kind of parked the cars at the end of that road.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Basserman, can you point out the emergency spillway for the southern retention basin here?
Yes, sir.
Where the location? Okay.
It's right here. Yeah. On that map. And then on the profile, it is right here.
And the distance between that top circle for the detention basin and the bottom one, I mean, how deep are we talking here?
This detention basin?
Yeah.
This is 6 feet.
6 feet. Just a concern with those 100-year plus storms activating that spillway. That water, I assume, is going to be leaving that pipe at a pretty high velocity.
So, the pipe itself is going to get restricted. So that 12-inch pipe leaving the southern detention basin, that one is only going to be flowing at 1.5 CFS, 1.5 CFS. And the northern one is only at 1.26 CFS. It's not that crazy. It's a good flow, but it's not. Again, this is only a 12-inch pipe coming out. We're not talking a 36-inch pipe or anything like that. It's a 12-inch pipe, and yeah.
Okay, so thank you for the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry. This is Commissioner Boda. I just want to clarify. Before I had asked about infiltration, are you asserting as part of this application that you are retaining the 1st inch and infiltrating it?
So the northern basin is. The southern, that is not the case on the southern basin. So that's a long-winded answer of saying no. That was not considered for the basins.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent, and just to point out, the individual house structures have the roof drains do not discharge to the stormwater basins and are not retained on site either.
Correct. The roof drains are all discharging to, or basically just discharging to the ground, and flow and not going into these detention basins. Part of the reason for that is otherwise I was afraid of starving any existing wetlands that we did have.
As Commissioner Batsman, again, given the fact that the regulations that we have in town talk about retaining the 1st inch, why was the decision not to incorporate that into the design in this detention basin in the south?
I will be 100% honest with you, sir. I do not have a good answer for that other than I will look into it and make it happen.
Yeah, to specific, to infiltrate.
Correct. Yeah.
Is that what I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Boda. Did you say infiltrate or retain? Sorry, I was trying to read.
I believe you said both actually, but yes. So, and that's not a difficult fix for us because the only basin that I have to reevaluate is the southern one. That's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, and I think this is Commissioner Boda, and I think that if you are going to assert that, then you would demonstrate that with some data.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, the drainage report will be updated to reflect it as well. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, did you indicate that the stormwater from the rooftops, et cetera, are not captured anywhere? It just free flows onto the property?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I believe that is correct, but I will let the applicant confirm.
That is correct. That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Is there some reason why we don't have a engineered system for taking care of that stormwater?
So the roof runoff, I would consider that a clean water. It's not contaminated or anything like that. And the other reason is it almost be I'd end up starving any wetlands that are off site because I would be reducing the amount of water coming off site significantly. And as we've talked about, there's a couple man-made wetland ponds to the east. We have some to the west. And then there's also the wetlands on the RWA property that's like 400 plus feet down gradient. So I'm trying not to remove too much water from these areas.
This is Commissioner Boda. I'm wondering then if that's your goal, which we don't want to cause the wetlands to desiccate. But I'm wondering then if it is the high point. If is that high point the road? Where's the high point in this site? And I guess what I'm wondering is if there's only one side, what I'm looking at on the upper right side of the map, that roof drainage would go off to the wetlands and that the lower portion would be captured, because it's not just the water quality, but our a concern is kind of that peak flow and keeping any hydrograph from spiking so that, what's going into the basin doesn't happen. We want to reduce the time of, or not change the time of concentration to a very narrow point.
So kind of go back. First question is the high point of the property. The high point of the property is essentially, as you come in off Autumn Ridge, it is right around here where the first lots are. And then the road kind of meanders, or the road hooks down and goes down slope. Secondly, I did also evaluate the watersheds, and which a watershed map has been provided to you. Each watershed and everywhere that the water is going, I analyzed. It's essentially broken down into 4 different areas, and not one of them has an increase. I'm either matching or decreasing the flows to each of these 4 areas around the property that I evaluated, which essentially I evaluated in this corner of the property. I did evaluate over here as well. And then I had the pond area, and I believe this property as well. So those are the four So those are the kind of the four areas that I looked at, because those were where the water was kind of heading to. And I didn't want to completely change where the water's going. So the drainage report will indicate that, if you took a close look at it, it would indicate that there's no increase in any of these areas. And no significant changes.
In volume or in timing?
In peak flows is essentially the main thing that I looked at. The only places that will have additional volume would be the waters flowing north.
Well, this is Commissioner Basswood. It sounds like that a report is going to be something we're going to take a close eye look at. And I guess it's interesting as to how you make the evaluation with treatment of rooftop stormwater versus without. So I guess we can hopefully move on, but that shows that report is going to be critical.
Okay, and then I think that was the bulk of what I wanted to talk about, at least in terms of wetland impact. So if there's any other questions, any other concerns, I will do my absolute best to address them and or make sure I have answers for you for the next meeting.
Commissioner Bergman, just one question about that southern detention.
Yes, ma'am.
The outlet for the pipe at the bottom, that's going to go towards that already kind of erosion ditch that we looked at on the site walk yesterday?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that. So these plans haven't been revised to depict this. I did issue a letter to Jamie. So the intent to basically what we'd end up doing for that erosion ditch is some minor regrading in order to put it to a 2-to-1 slope, and then stabilizing it with with standard seed and hay in order to prevent future erosion.
This is Commissioner Boda. Can you, was trying to look at the file in the Dropbox. Can you clarify which map has the sediment and erosion control plan?
So the sediment and erosion controls, they're pretty much shown on the stormwater management plan. So sheets 9 and 8. The main thing is going to be, the stone silt fence. That essentially is mainly encompassing most of the S&E measures that are going to be required for this.
This is Commissioner Boda. Do you have stockpiles on the site? And if you would just refer to the map number that you're looking at. So, because mine is like blown up like this. So I'm like this much, but I can see it.
Yep. It does not appear to be on there. It will be. I apologize.
Yeah. So this is Commissioner Boda. So as you're doing your review to go through with a fine tooth comb, and make sure that any of the sediment and erosion controls are noted, so that we can look more carefully at them. Are there other, I guess, I'll leave that to you to go back and look and see if there's anything else that's not called out. And I guess if the intention is for the town to maintain, is there an intention for snow stockpiling? Like, where would that get pushed to? That's like, what, the end of the cul-de-sac?
Yeah. There's really no other location for snow other than the end of the cul-de-sac. That's essentially where it would end up going. Yes.
So this is Commissioner Kraus, and you probably wouldn't block that emergency little road you have. So where would you be putting the storm? By lot 7? That's the closest to the wetlands?
So where we'd be putting the snow?
Right.
Oh, sorry. The snow would most likely end up in this area. Sorry, it's crude.
But then you'd be blocking that emergency road there that you're putting in.
It won't block that road. It'll need to be over. Sorry, my hand's a little shaky.
So all the snow is going to fit in that little section of a cul-de-sac?
I'm going to have to evaluate the snow.
Okay, thanks.
I'll evaluate it further.
That sounds like the right answer.
Yeah, that's Commissioner Boda. I would think about, as you're evaluating, both the access road, and then if the only place where the snow is going to end up is all right piled on top of a storm drain, that is going to potentially impede the water moving off as it starts to melt.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the commission at this point?
I'm good.
If there's I'm sorry? You're good? If there's a member of the public.
Questions.
Go ahead.
No, I said I don't have any questions.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Commissioner Kraus. If there's a member of the public that would like to ask a question on the applicant, please state your name and your question. Okay.
1 minute, Peter. I'm going to stop screen sharing real quick so I can just double check the participant window.
See if anybody's raised their hand.
To see if anyone's
I have it up,
raising their
Jamie.
hand.
I don't see anyone that's trying to talk. You might want to let people know to unmute if they are on their phone. Maybe the *6, one of them.
Yeah, so if there is anyone from the public that's looking to talk, it is *6 to unmute, or *9 to raise your hand.
This is
Like, do you have something that popped up?
Somebody's asking a question in the chat. So
Somebody has asked, has the Autumn Ridge access been approved? Nothing has been approved at this time. Great.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I would like to table this application till next month and until I can address the comments of the commission.
I appreciate your motion here to table it. I think the commission would be happy to entertain this at the next meeting.
I do just have one question. I apologize. Jamie, I just would like to confirm, has this been given to the town engineering department?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. It has been. I have not received comment, but they do have a copy for review. And I will let them know that it's continued to the October 14th meeting, so that hopefully they can provide comment in some time that you might be able to respond to it.
And then just so I know, when would the commission like revisions by?
As soon as possible is ideal. However, we usually send materials out the Friday before the meeting. If you get them earlier, then we'll send them out to the commissioners earlier.
Before meeting. The only reason why I ask is because I may try to hold off as long as I can to acquire the comments from the town engineer as well. But you and I will touch base later about that. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. DeMille. Next up, and then Wetland 210802, 61 Bourbon Drive. This is the creation of a multifamily residential development. We have the applicant with us this evening.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. The applicant is not present because the plans have changed slightly in response to comments made by staff. The current drainage on site is not really functioning. It's pretty blocked up. So there was concern that when the drainage is cleaned out and improved, the velocity of flow coming out of the discharge point into the watercourse could be problematic. So they have revised the plan and it includes activity on the adjacent property. So we are looking for authorization from the adjacent property owner to be party of the application, and we will be filing a revised or an agenda that includes that additional property so that it is properly noticed. The activity is in a watercourse / wetland, so there is an additional fee associated with that. The applicant has submitted a fee reduction request and requested that the commission consider that this evening. Is that something that you would like for me to pull up to take a look at?
This Commissioner Bassler, I'm a little confused. You're saying that the plan has changed.
Correct.
Do we have the ability to look at those changes before assessing a fee reduction, or are we doing that in the absence of those changes?
So I do have a copy of the revised plan if the commission wants to take a look at it, or if the commission wants to wait until the authorization has been received, it can be considered at the next meeting. The benefit of looking at it this evening is that if the commission is that we can make sure that the fee is the appropriate amount. Otherwise, I would request that they submit the full fee amount and then we would refund any fee reductions so that way they're not held up due to outstanding application fees.
This Commissioner Bassler, I'm kind of leaning toward the latter, but I can be persuaded otherwise.
Commissioner Begeman, I prefer the latter.
Okay.
Commissioner Papantonis, I also prefer the latter.
All right. So I will update them that the commission will consider that at the next meeting, which is October 14th again. And I did get a comment from the previous applicant that we did not consider the fee scenario for the other property, Cherry Hill, 175 Cherry Hill. But at this point, I believe that's something that can be considered at the October meeting as well. Does the commission agree?
I'd like to be consistent
Moved on.
and treat them both the same. Thank you.
All right.
Next up, Inland Wetland 210803, 5 and 13 Summit Place. Demolition of existing building and construction of a new 48-unit multifamily apartment building and associated parking. This evening, we have the applicant with us, or do we not?
We do.
Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Ryan McAvoy. I'm a licensed professional engineer with Mona McBroom, now SLR Consulting, here on behalf of the applicant. So subsequent to the last meeting, we did provide revisions to Jamie this morning, which included some modifications to the sediment erosion control plan, provided additional clarity on some of the temporary sediment basins. We do have an updated landscaping plan that includes foundation plantings around the building, along with additional trees. And landscaping quantities on the site plans. Jamie also had some questions about the areas to the east of the building, which actually, would it be best if I could share my screen, Jamie? Is that possible?
I believe you should be able to.
Okay, hopefully this works. Let's. All right, let me know if and when you can see this.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So she had a question about whether or not access would be needed to the east side of the building, east being on the downside of this map. And access will not be needed. That area is just going to be landscaped and lawn. Also, at Jamie's suggestion, we included a split rail fence at the limit of disturbance or the top of the slope. That's going to remain to help discourage any activities going down the slope. I think the nature of the slope, that for those members that saw the field walk, is it's somewhat discouraging enough, given the grade of it. And lastly, we were able to locate the ultimate stormwater discharge that comes from a portion of the property currently and discharges into the adjacent wetlands. Generally found it to be in acceptable condition. The pipe's in good shape. Limited erosion at the toe of the outlet. And again, what was mentioned at the last meeting that we continue to propose is reduction in impervious surfaces from approximately 2.1 acres out of the 3 overall to approximately 1.5 acres. So we are reducing flows both to the wetlands and both to Summit Place. One item that was mentioned in Jamie's report or her comments was Section 7.6A of the regulations, which has requirements regarding storage of the first inch of the water quality volume of runoff. And we are seeking, I don't know if waiver is the right term, but I know that your regulations do allow for the commission to consider other alternatives. We're hoping not to do that for a couple of reasons. The first is that I guess the main reason is that the site is constructed almost entirely of fill today. So any infiltration measures we put into the ground will be in fill material that would eventually migrate its way to that fill slope to the east. And with a fill condition, you really have a lot of unknowns in terms of the nature of the material. So it would be our preference to not introduce significant quantities of stormwater into that ground material to avoid any unforeseen circumstances. Having said that, we are providing for water quality flow protection in the form of CDS water quality units, which are designed in accordance with the 2004 Deep Water Quality Manual and sized based on the manufacturer's specifications. The manufacturer is approved by the Connecticut DOT for use as water quality chambers, and our units that we selected are based on the contributing flow of primarily impervious surfaces to those units. So we do provide for water quality flow retention, which will eliminate up to 80% or more of total suspended solids within the runoff. Again, that's the goal of the DEP Water Quality Manual. And also will trap floatable debris within the structure itself through screening mechanisms.
This is Commissioner Bassman.
And removal.
Mr. McAvoy, can you give a brief description of how that device functions?
So there's a sort of a screening device when stormwater enters the unit, and that allows for floatable debris to be trapped at the beginning, and there's also at the top of the structure, and there's also a swirl technology where runoff is directed in a circular manner through the structure, which allows through gravitational efforts to sediments to be removed from suspension and stored within the bottom of the structure itself. Pretty common. This technology has been around for a number of years now, and it is lab tested, verified, and approved for use by the DOT, Connecticut DOT, and also meets the requirements of the deep for water quality flow treatment. So we do have one of those units. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Sir, but we do have one CDS unit located here prior to connection to that manhole that we saw on the field walk that had to be uncovered.
Is it depicted on your plan anywhere?
Yes, sir. It's on the grading utility sheet. We don't show it on this rendering for clarity, but let me go over to our full set of plans that was submitted. And let me scroll up to the utility plan. So, for example, on the drainage system that connects to Summit Place, this last inlet is a CDS model 2015-4. And similarly, the last inlet structure.
Is there a cross section on sheets like 10 or 9 or one of those?
I believe we have a detail showing that, and also we have literature in the drainage report showing from the manufacturer showing how they meet the water quality flow requirements, and also some case studies that they have where they've demonstrated in situ.
Okay, I'll keep looking. Thank you.
So I'm looking through our details right now. We do have details and cross sections for the hydrodynamic separators.
Thank you.
So that's a summary of the modifications to the plans that we've made. If there's any questions from the commission, I'd be happy to answer them. I know that there was most of the members were at the field walk yesterday. So if there's any questions that came out from that field walk, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, can you go over the phasing of the erosion controls during development real quick?
Sure. So we go back to our sediment erosion control plan. So we provide for 3 temporary sediment traps, one that will connect to each of the current discharge points exiting the site. The first of which is located in the upper parking area, which during initial construction of the building will have runoff directed from that upper parking area to it, where it will have an overflow, an under drain that will be wrapped in filter fabric and stone, and an overflow riser that will allow any accumulated runoff in the basin that doesn't get through the perforated under drain to the catch basin in Summit Place. Similarly, a smaller temporary sediment trap located a little bit further to the north with a similar mechanism for dewatering, an under drain, perforated under drain wrapped in stone and filter fabric with a high level riser that will be directed to a catch basin on Summit Place. And lastly, another additional temporary sediment trap to the southeast corner of the site, which will ultimately discharge through a filter fabric encased under drain to the manhole that we saw on our field walk just off the current edge of pavement. So in terms of phasing, this sediment trap will exist during the initial phases of construction and during initial building construction. It will be eliminated essentially when mass earthwork and mass site grading occur to create the parking lot as you see here. And then these 2 temporary sediment traps will handle the runoff from this upper parking lot.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I just want to let the commission know, again, I have not received comments from the town engineer on this project. Also, these revised plans were received today and I have not had a chance to review them. So I would probably recommend waiting to make a decision, but I encourage you to ask any questions you have of the applicant, and also to provide any guidance on whether additional information should be provided to demonstrate why treatment of the first inch is not prudent or feasible, or if you were satisfied with the explanation given.
This is Commissioner Basserman. I think we're going to need probably more substance on why we don't retain that first inch, because we have really tried to, in all applications that we receive, treat that as one of the have-to-haves. So I think even though it might be reasonably clean water, I think there's other issues associated with not capturing that inch, for which we're going to need on the record good rationale.
Understood.
Commissioner Begman, the question, you may have said this, But the roof runoff, how is that being handled?
So the roof runoff, let me go back to my colored plan. The roof runoff is all going to be conveyed to the storm drainage that ultimately discharges to that existing manhole off the parking lot today. And that represents the majority of the runoff that will get to the wetland, with the exception of this parking lot, portion of the parking lot over here. So while we're reducing the amount of impervious surface and the amount of runoff that gets to the wetland, we're also changing to a large degree the quality and nature of the drainage that gets there, because the majority of it is just going to be building runoff, which will have a relatively clean composition when compared to parking lot runoff. So the building is all being directed ultimately to the wetland through a water quality unit.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? I think staff's recommendation is that we get the additional information from the applicant and assess this at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Is there any commissioner that feels that they have enough information to want to act this evening?
This is Commissioner Boda. I just have one question. I don't, the answer to your question is no, but are there plantings? I mean, it looks like it's all going straight into the stormwater system, and I'm wondering if there's any time or opportunity for that water to be in daylight, maybe under vegetation before it goes to the pipe.
I missed the first part of your question because of a glitch on my end, I think. But I think what you're asking is can any of this be directed towards landscape areas before it gets collected? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Well, that was something we certainly looked at in the beginning of this project to see where there might be opportunities for that. The challenge we face are a couple items. One is that our parking lot is going to be somewhat lower than Summit Place to make the building elevations work without exceeding building height requirements and things of that nature. So ideally, we would have tried to direct runoff to sort of vegetated swale along the road, perhaps along the edge of the parking. But that's not really able to be achieved just because we do have a grade change of a few feet, and sometimes in some cases 3 or 4 feet from Summit Place. So there's just not a whole lot of space to do that. And similarly, this parking lot to the west of or south of the building, to the left of the building on the sheet, is all drained and graded slightly lower than the adjacent landscaped area. And we're also trying to leave as much of this landscaped area open as possible for passive recreation associated with the clubhouse, which is part of the phase 2 development. And that's been something that's been expressed to us by the Planning and Zoning Department, that they want to keep as much of this area as free and open for recreation as possible. So there really isn't a whole lot of opportunity or room to implement things like that. We can certainly double check and see if there's any opportunities for that, but it is a relatively tight site, so we are limited in the ability to disconnect the impervious, so to speak.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. I think if you're going to make a case for not infiltrating, it would be helpful to look for those opportunities to mitigate any temperature impact that would then be just discharged directly. So anything coming off of the roof. Yeah.
I think I lost you again, but I think I understand where you're going with it.
Thank you. Any other questions of the commission? Okay, see you next month.
Thank you. Good night.
By the way, appreciate the extra effort that you guys did in locating, the manhole, the pipe, checking on the quality of the pipe and all of that.
Yeah, it was more effort than I originally intended it to be, but we got it done.
Good story.
I think it's great that you've reduced the impervious surface.
It's a better story than I usually get to tell.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, Inland Wetland 210804, 47 Gould Lane, scour hole repair. Jamie?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. I think I was supposed to get a revised plan with maintenance details. And it looks like the applicant is not present.
Jamie, Michael, did
no.
you?
Oh, sorry, Michael. I didn't see you.
I'm sorry. I'm on my wife's computer.
All right. So I guess the applicant is present. So I had mentioned that the commission might want to see maintenance details for the proposed drainage structure. I've not received that yet, but I can pull up the site plan that we do have. Also, I just wanted to mention that if you look forward to enforcement on the agenda, 47 Gould Lane is under that section as a notification of the erosion control status, and the applicant had requested that both items be discussed at the same time. So I am going to take a minute.
Does Commissioner Branford, does any commissioner have an objection to dealing with those at the same time? Okay, good. Treat them the same.
Jamie, not to interrupt Michael again. I did forward that those comments along earlier in the day, and I just resent it again. If you can have the ability to pull it up out of your email, the revised plan with the maintenance comments that you requested are there again.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I will share the site plan that was just emailed to me. Obviously, I've not had a chance to take a look at it. Screen share. All right. So this is the proposed site plan. The proposal is to remove some sediment and place a scour hole to protect the outlet from where the northern portion of the subdivision outlets into the wetland. And if the applicant wants to give a more broad overview of the activity, by all means.
Jamie, is Ryan McAvoy still on the call? I think if he is, he probably could speak better to that than I can. Otherwise, I can do it.
I am on the call and be happy to speak to it if with the commission's pleasure.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay. So what we're proposing essentially is to remove accumulated sediment at the base of Gould Lane, where there's currently a discharge pipe and a fair amount of sediment that's accumulated over several decades. Really, a lot of it is road sand and gravel, things of that nature. Some of was finer sediments deposited as part of the Gould Lane project. Michael can speak to the agreement that he has with the land trust, but it was his intention and his desire to remove that sediment in accordance with discussions with the land trust and to construct a stable outfall for the existing discharge. The discharge has no formal outlet protection right now, and what we're looking to install is a fairly standard scour hole, very much like a riprap splash pad, just with a small depression in it. And areas down gradient of the scour hole, we're looking to line with stone so that there's not an issue of erosion after the sediment is removed. So we have a stable surface within the existing channel where the stormwater exits the road. We did review this with the land trust, and they have provided their consent for the improvements. And Mr. DeJoy is also committed to having a soil scientist oversee the removal of the sediment, so it's done in a sensitive manner. And whether it be a soil scientist hired by himself or one hired by the land trust, I don't know that that's been worked out. But either way, it will be overseen by a soil scientist, and the end result should be an improved condition at that outfall where there is no stable energy dissipator today. In terms of the post-construction operation and maintenance plan, it's really very simple. This is no different, like I said, than sort of a riprap splash pad, more or less. So it does have a small depression in it, so it should be monitored occasionally for accumulated sediment, primarily road sands, things of that nature, and sediment removed when it's greater than 6 inches deep. There will need to be monitoring of it after it's installed to make sure that there's no issues with erosion, further erosion into the wetland areas. So it's really a very straightforward maintenance plan. There's really not a whole lot of complication to it. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Commissioner Bassman, just for clarity purposes, what we're looking at on our screen right now is the same plan that we received in August, except for the addition of the operation and maintenance plan. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the commission on this proposed repair? This is Commissioner Bassman. Staff, are you okay with moving forward on this?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I would have a couple of questions. Some of them, I guess one of them is there a particular time of year or condition when this work would be recommended to occur?
Yes, I would recommend that it only occur when conditions are substantially dry, like not right now. And part of the reason why we got the application when we did was the hopes that around this time conditions would be suitably dry to do the work. But Mr. DeJoy is not going to proceed with the work until essentially both until he and the land trust and I suppose you as well, Jamie, agree that the conditions are dry enough to allow the work to commence, and it should all be done fairly quickly within a few days. But it really shouldn't be done when the conditions are as wet as they are right now.
Commissioner Bassman, does any commissioner have an issue with staff doing this as agent approval, assuming that Jamie is able to satisfy any issues she got with the most recently provided information?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. This is actually actionable by the commission this evening, and I cannot approve it administratively because there is approximately, I think, 40 square feet of activity in the wetland.
Okay.
The activity is on land trust property, which is why land trust authorization was needed. So the actual structure, if you will, the scour hole is on the land trust property. I'm not entirely sure whether the town or the land trust or who would be responsible for maintaining it. Ultimately, it is a town pipe, so the town would make sure that the pipe is not obstructed. The other concern I would have is that there have been some erosion control concerns, particularly with the large rainstorm events that we've had recently. And I will share some pictures of what the site looked like I'll start with immediately after Ida. Bear with me as I go to the other discussions folder. So this is just a picture of the lower detention basin, upper detention basin, silt fence, overtopped, and at the bottom of the picture, you can kind of see there's a yard drain circled with silt fence that was also overtopped. So there was sediment that got into the yard drain, which ultimately discharges to the outlet we were just looking at the maintenance for. And then just kind of general, this is uphill of the erosion controls, but just some general site conditions. And then as you can see, there's a crew working on cleaning out the catch basin here. This was in the morning right after the storm, so they were on the repairs, but the silt fence also overtopped on the corner of Gould Lane and La Mantra, and sediment got into that catch basin as well, which also discharges to the outlet that they're looking to do the activity at. So I just wanted to make the commission aware that there have been some erosion control issues relative to Ida and Henry, and that these issues are relevant to the area that the application is pending for. And there have been substantial improvements on the site. However, these areas are still open and under construction. So this is the low point in Gould Lane. The catch basin on the left-hand side of this picture is to the left of that is where the outlet is. And that's the general area of that the work will be proposed to occur in. And this is up by the discharge for the lower detention basin, which is very well vegetated, as you can see. So then,
This is Commissioner Bassman. So Jamie, how would you like to proceed here?
So as you can see, Abby went out today to inspect the erosion controls again, and the applicant has taken measures to try and prevent any further erosion from occurring. It's very challenging right now with the way that the site is open. I guess my recommendation would be that the commission is sensitive to the conditions under when this activity should occur, and possibly, I know the applicant is looking to seed a lot of the areas that are problematic in the near future. So I don't know if maybe getting those areas seeded prior to the activity. I mean, I'm sure the applicant doesn't want to have to go in and do this activity twice either. So I think just using common sense in how this is handled moving forward.
And I would offer also that I'll ask Michael to speak to when he plans on reseeding those, particularly lot 20, which is the one of two lots that are currently causing issues, just because those are the two lots that are under construction that are not really fully vegetated at this point. Lot 20 in particular is the larger of the two, and it was seeded, hydroseeded, and this tropical storm Ida came at the wrong time and really just kind of overwhelmed some of the S&E controls down below. But Michael, if you could share what your time frame is for grading and seeding lots 20 and 17, I think that would, when those are vegetated, which hopefully is soon, then we'll be in a position, along with hopefully a drying out period along Gould Lane, to remove that sediment down there.
Michael DeJoy, Donmar Development. So lot number 20, as long as the conditions are dry enough tomorrow, we are going to fine grade and rehydro seed for the third time now, lot number 20. And probably middle to the end of next week, we are going to bury the propane tank on number 17, grade it, and also hydroseed that as well. I'd also like to point out that unbeknownst to me previously, there's 3 catch basins along with an entire parcel that the town actually owns on Acorn Lane that divert specifically to lot number 20, which never really showed its face until we graded up lot number 20. And with even the most minimal of a rainstorm, there's a river flowing through the front of lot number 20, which, as Ryan said previously, basically just overwhelms our erosion controls. So with Tropical Storm Ida, we were left in a position that's far less than ideal from an S&E control standpoint. But as long as everything is dry enough tomorrow where we can get equipment in there and actually be able to rake, it will be restored again tomorrow.
Commissioner Wasserman, it sounds to me like I haven't heard anything about the scour repair that anybody has issue with. Timing seems to be the appropriate gating factor on this particular fix. But I also understand that in terms of approvals, Land Trust and Inland Wetland staff would be involved in agreeing on the timing. Do I understand that correctly?
So Michael DeGioia, Donmar Development. Chairman Basserman, yes, that's correct. So along with the town enforcement officer, the Land Trust also has their own wetland scientist or soil scientist engaged. They have to confer together, the 3 of them, along with my wetland scientist from SLR on timing. Otherwise, it's not a go. So we seek application or / approval so that when the time is right, we are able to go ahead and proceed.
I guess this is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, if the agreement is that staff approve the timing, is there any other mechanism that you need to feel comfortable with to move this forward? Or do you need time? I'm not trying to pressure here. I just want to figure out which direction we go here.
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. I certainly see the point of getting the work done when the conditions are appropriate. And I'm not sure if that's a condition of approval. I'm not sure necessarily whether that's a reason to hold up the application from being processed at this time, as long as the commission's satisfied with everything. In addition to the weather conditions being appropriate, I would also like to see that lot 17 and lot 20 are vegetated prior to the activity occurring, and that generally the erosion controls on site are in good shape, and that there's no tracking or material in the roads.
Commissioner Greenwald, I'll make a motion that we approve the plan submitted for the scour hole repair at 47 Gould Lane, IW 21.08.04, with the conditions that the timing of doing the repair work to be subject to the agreement of wetlands officer and the land trust, since it's on their property, and that this does not occur before the vegetation is completed on the two lots that are still undeveloped there. Are still being worked on Lamatra and Gould Bay.
This is Commissioner Kraus. I'll second that motion.
Is there any further discussion?
This is Commissioner Boda. I would just add that and that there is no tracking or material that has been moved to the road from lot 17 and 20.
Commissioner Begeman, just a question. In the motion, it says 17 and 20 are vegetated. Does that mean seeded, or does that mean that there's something growing?
To be vegetated.
It means there's something growing that has roots. So Commissioner Grenache, you would need to accept the motion if you're the amendment if you're amenable.
Commissioner Grenache, my intent was that that the seeding be done, but that it also comes in as grass and enough to stabilize the surface.
This is Commissioner Bassett. I believe, Commissioner Grenache, that Commissioner Boda talked about the material tracking, et cetera, was part of her amendment. And she wants to know if you would accept that amendment as part of your motion.
Yes, I will.
Commissioner Kraus, do you accept that as a second?
Yes, I will.
Any further discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? I'm sorry, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We have an enforcement activity. Notice of violation for Island View Village condominiums. Drainage maintenance required. Initial correspondence was sent on September 1. Staff, have we heard from the applicant?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. We've heard from the property owners.
Property owners.
And future applicants. So I did hear from the condo property has two different associations. There's like a phase 1 and a phase 2. I've heard from both. They both intend to comply with the notice of violation and assess the drainage issue. I believe that we have someone present from both. And I believe that one party has brought their has brought their project engineer as well to the meeting. If you guys want me to recap what the situation is, I can, or I can hand it over to the property owners for them to discuss their reaction to the notice of violation. I think from the commission standpoint, the guidance to give the property owner would be what exactly it is that you're looking for. Are you just looking for a plan to repair what has happened? Are you looking for any sort of restoration of the immediate area or anything like that? I think those would be the appropriate things to discuss this evening.
Jamie, this is Commissioner Boda. Would you just recap briefly what
Yeah, so Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent, this was brought to my attention by somebody with Parks and Open Space. They were walking trails on the Branford Supply Ponds property, and they noticed a new trail that had kind of been developed. And so they followed it, and it kind of led to the Island View condo property. And they noticed that there was a drainage pipe that was eroded and is in disrepair. And so they submitted some photos of the activity.
This is Island View off of Brushy Plains.
Correct. So the subject property is Island View. off of Brushy Plains, which is unfortunately cut off. This is the correspondence that was received and shared with the commission at the last meeting in August. And this is the condition of the pipe that's in question. And so the property owners were very quick to respond and have expressed that they intend to comply. I am meeting with both associations tomorrow morning to review the conditions and further discuss next steps.
Commissioner Basserman, what did the NOV specifically suggest?
Sorry. So submit an inland wetlands and watercourses permit application for review to repair the drainage system outlet and stop further siltation of the wetland / watercourse. The application should include engineered plan to repair the drainage system and stabilize the disturbed area. The plan shall include erosion control measures and a stormwater management maintenance plan. B, assess the impact to the watercourse / wetland areas and recommendations for mitigating impact. And then also requesting that they attend the meeting.
Yep. Got it.
I did not give a time frame for submitting the application or anything like that. That can be discussed this evening.
Okay. Thank you. If somebody from Island View Village Condominiums want to give us their thoughts, that would be helpful. Please.
Cheryl. Thank you. Cheryl Danu from Merritt Properties, the property manager for Island View Village 2. We are planning on meeting with Jamie tomorrow with the property manager from Island View Village 1. And we also have in tonight's meeting, Chuck Eaton, who is our engineer who we have contracted with. So I don't know whether Chuck wants to just speak on behalf of the condition that he had originally seen. It seems like this area is a combination of the two properties, the two water sources from the runoff has compromised this existing pipe. So it's not just this pipe that is having an issue. It seems like water is coming from the adjacent property. So until we really can take a look at it tomorrow and investigate exactly where the water is coming from, and it's going to have to be a combination of the two properties, maybe doing some mitigation on where this water is coming from and how it's going to be handled in the future. So I don't think it's going to be something that we can fix immediately without some significant planning.
Okay. You want to say a few words, Mr. Eaton?
Sure. So we were working with the association to fix some of their parking lots and existing drainage issues that they have on site. And basically we were putting together a phasing plan as to how we were going to do it due to the cost involved in this. But we were actually planning on coming before the commission with an application due to drainage modifications, and this is where we will start.
Okay. So I guess stay tuned. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, yes. So we haven't gotten far enough to do any wetland flagging or survey or, cameraing of drainage pipes or anything like that. we were basically in the process of putting that together when we received the NOV, and so we'll have to work with the association and get some field work done and get some plans put together.
Commissioner Bassman, do you have any idea time-wise what that might take?
I don't. It kind of depends on the association. I would tend to think, what happens with the adjacent condominium association, what we find in the field tomorrow. We could probably have something put together in a few months based on what we find tomorrow, but I'm not sure what's gonna happen tomorrow.
Yeah, my concern. Go ahead, somebody else.
Sorry, Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I just want to mention that this notice of violation went out September 1st, so they haven't had it for very long.
I understand, but we also, Commissioner Bassman, we also know that this is a condition that we need to rectify, as soon as practical. The issue is how long is practical. I guess I would ask you to use best efforts to at least provide some substantial assessment of what the condition is for the next meeting, and maybe the solution comes a little bit after that.
Sure.
This is Commissioner Boda. Just a quick question. Is this water draining into Pine Gutter Brook? Is that part of the Pine Gutter Brook system?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So I believe screen shared a GIS map. So the subject property is this one here that says Village Lane and Austin Ryer Lane. And the drainage of concern is off the back of the site. And it drains into this water course on town open space. So this is the Supply Ponds property over here, with this being the bridge that goes between the ponds.
Yeah, Commissioner Boda, if you zoom in, like a lot.
To what area?
To right behind the condo where the water course.
Might be easier to pull up a different GIS map. 1 minute.
Just then, the reason why I ask is that the town has on file reports about Pine Gutter Brook, and that may be of some guidance and use. And I suspect that this is what the water behind the condo is discharging into. And so I don't remember if it's Fussin O'Neill or Mylona McBroom had done a report on it several years ago. And so it may be pertinent information.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I believe it was Mylona McBroom. I'll look. I'm pretty sure it's on our website, but I'll look for it and I can share it with the property owners. The property owners have also asked for any maps we might have of the stormwater drainage system. Unfortunately, I don't think we have anything. I've looked through the files a little bit and I told them I'd look through them more. But aside from notes on historic problems with the erosion and drainage, we don't really have much for this property.
Okay, anything else from the commission? Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Inland Wetland 19-1005, 99 Todds Hill Road, 15 lot subdivision and open space. Looks like some erosion control follow-up from Tropical Storm Ida. I assume, Jamie, you've got either pictures or comments?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I do have some pictures that I can share. Again, there's been some historic issues on site with erosion controls and with Henry and Ida, which are both very large storms. There were some more issues. So this was immediately after this, well, this is later in the day after the storm. So things had dried out a bit. And I believe that the owner had done some cleanup at that time. So and if for those of you that went to the site walk yesterday, this is Cherry Hill Road, which you drove down to access the first site. So there was some sediment that had gotten into the roadway. There were some hay bales going across a driveway that had gotten blown out because they were not staked, which was a major part of the problem. Also, there was a rain garden area that's not been seeded yet that I overtopped the silt fence adjacent to it, which was uphill of that. So I think that also lent to the problem. And so I told the owner I was going to bring it to the commission's attention because obviously the conditions are not good. This is an interior silt fence and there's another one below it. However, this is where I was talking about with the rain garden overtopped, and there are 2 driveway accesses down gradient of where this activity is. And we didn't make it out there until the end of the day afterwards. And I personally didn't see it. I sent Abby out. So I'm not really sure if this was part of what got in the street or not.
And here's Commissioner Basserman. And okay, we certainly see that there's some issues here. Would our normal course of action have been to issue an NOV?
Yeah, so I was hesitant to issue the notice of violation in part because it was such a large storm. However, these sites aren't exactly new to having issues. And I wanted to stress that this can't keep happening. And that particularly this was not a problem during the storm. But I had asked them to repair it and obviously it hadn't been repaired. And so since this inspection, they have done some work. However, you probably noticed there was still some sediment in the street they had swept, but I think scraping is needed. And I will.
Commissioner Bassman, is there one responsible party for the sum total of what we saw here or not?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. So yeah, there's I would say one party that's primarily responsible. Some of the lots have sold, but the issues are relative to the lots that are being developed. So also not going out when it's raining, it's hard to tell if the water courses are being impacted because they're fast moving. However, it looks like some sediment may have gotten into this water course in particular. Can't swear that it came from the development on hand, but it seems plausible. So just making sure that these things are not happening moving forward, I think is my primary concern. And then also maybe getting some guidance on when I should possibly consider issuing a notice of violation or cease and correct order in these instances, because obviously there's a couple of sites around town, and the 3 that I put on the agenda this week aren't the only ones, but they were the ones that got hit the hardest with this particular storm.
It would seem to me that our practice in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Vasserman, is to issue the NOV and hopefully get cooperation. Sometimes when that NOV doesn't seem to be the appropriate vehicle, we have to move to cease and correct. But obviously nothing's going to happen unless there is some correspondence. And as I say, typically we use the NOV to make sure that they understand where we're coming from, as you did with the prior discussion that we had. There was a NOV and it listed what needed to be done. It seems to me that the jump to a cease and correct without the NOV might be a bridge too far.
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. So the next time something like this happens, go ahead and issue the notice of violation so it gets on the agenda and it has directives of what's required to
Right, because
get it off their plate.
These storms keep coming.
Yes, they do.
That's my knee-jerk reaction. What do other commissioners feel?
This is Commissioner Boda. I agree. I mean, I do recall one cease and correct for kind of egregious flouting of the expectations of correcting sediment and erosion control that had been noticed on reports, and that they kept kind of coming up and they weren't fixed. And so it went, I can't remember if there was an NOV first or it just went to cease and correct because it had been discussed through the course of looking at engineering reports. So I think best practice would be the notice of violation as early as possible, especially for something that had been, again, if it had come up by looking at the engineering reports and they're non-responsive, that those same issues are repeated, then the NOV should go out. And by the time it comes to the commission, if there's really been, a week, 2 weeks, and there's been no movement, because it's in their plans that they have to respond, I think, within 24 hours. So then we can go ahead and do the cease and correct. It's a long time between now and the next meeting for them not to respond to an NOV.
Anybody else?
I'm Commissioner Papantonis. I'm a little concerned because we've had so much rain today too, that this is what it's going to look like tomorrow over there.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. These pictures you're looking at right now were taken this afternoon. So luckily today's rain has been somewhat slow, relatively speaking. And they have made some of the repairs that I requested. But obviously with the site conditions and when I last talked with them, they wouldn't have been able to get them all done.
Yeah, Commissioner Bass, the other thing is this is not just one site. I mean, there's multiple locations here.
Yep.
So there's a fair amount of work that needs to get done quickly.
So at this point, work with the developer, get things fixed. As long as it happens in a timely manner and they stay on top of things, continue. And then if there's another problem, issue a notice of violation.
I would say,
Commissioner Boda, I think you need to issue the notice of violation now.
Agreed.
Okay, for this site that we're specifically looking at now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Especially if hay bales weren't staked and they weren't following their sediment and erosion control plan, and it's already been discussed, then they should definitely have the notice of violation. And I would include that our next action is to apply a cease and correct to the construction site.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, just to be clear, the hay bales were installed as an added precaution. They were not on the site plan. And I advised him in the future, if he feels the need to put them there because of the storm, to make sure they're staked.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not something that he was supposed to have done, but it's something that definitely would have helped.
Yes. Yeah, and I think I'm sure there's a lot going on, but especially with these larger sites, if you have a verbal conversation to follow up with an email of what the guidance is so that we have a written record of the correspondence and recommendation from you. Mm-hmm. That way there's no,
yeah.
I said if I wanted to, I didn't want to, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah. And it's hard to list everything. So I try and list things and then always say, please check everything though, because there's always things that need to be done. All right, so I will issue the notice of violation outlining the items that I noted, and also making the general statements of complying generally with the sediment and erosion control plans, and update you guys at the next meeting on actions that were taken, and the site condition at that time.
Yeah, and I think Commissioner Boda, and I think, it's not too much to say. It's like the purpose of the sediment erosion control plan. So if it's not working, then they need to do what needs to be done in order to prevent sediment from mobilizing, period.
Mm-hmm.
And that is their responsibility. So that can be a little catch-all that kind of takes the pressure off of you from engineering their plan. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That is their job.
This Commissioner Baskin, to Commissioner Boda's point on the timing issue, if we issue an NOV quickly, and you don't find cooperation over the course of the next couple of weeks, might we want to issue a cease and correct so that at least timing wise, we could have that hearing at the same time as our regular meeting as opposed to having another meeting?
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I would agree with that. I was on the fence about issuing notice of violations for these 3 items that I just put on the agenda. I was in and out that week, and I was only in a half day on Friday, and I just wanted to at least notice everyone that they needed to do something. So I sent everyone information on that Friday, and I didn't have time to get notice of violations out. So
no problem. We move forward here. We don't look back.
Yeah, and
right.
I think, I think too, it's actually helpful because then if you time it, then it can be, and if we had to do the cease and correct, and we had to have that just cause within 10 days, then, we can do the backwards math so that it works for our next meeting.
Right. Okay. Inland Wetland 191004, 339, 333, West Main Street, stone parking area for car dealership, erosion control, deja vu, follow up from Tropical Storm Ida.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I will pull up the pictures from our first inspection post Ida, and my screen sharing? No. All right. So this is Pent Road. The property address is West Main Street, which is what you're looking at the top of the screen. Yeah. Oops, sorry. This slightly smaller. So as you can see, they had some sediment get into the driveway area and into the road. Under this tree, there is a catch basin that discharges somewhere onto the site in the background. I don't know where the discharge of the system is. And on the far side of the site, there's a wetland. So I don't know where the discharge is relative to the wetland area, but it's certainly concerning that material is getting into that system. So I believe this is the second time that this has happened. There were some measures put in place after the first time which was Henry, to try and mitigate the activity. And there's another catch basin in drainage area that was installed in response to this, to the first time, to try and help mitigate it happening again. And they ended up with problems out there again because the whole site right now is pretty open and disturbed. So after the first time, they did clean out the basin area and the catch basin. And they have stated that they'll do it again. And that they plan on topsoil and seeding within the next, I believe, 2 weeks it was. pull up that email real quick. Erosion and sediment issues that stem from the extreme rainfall event related to the remnants of Hurricane Ida have been generally cleaned up. Silt fence damage during the storm has been reset, and in some instances backed with hay bales. The silt in the detention basin has been cleaned out. Erosion in swale has been repaired, and swale has been enhanced by installing riprap along bottom, including riprap check dams, and to further slow future rain events. Erosion control blankets will be added to the sides of the swale where the flow was more concentrated. The schedule is to get topsoil finished and get the site hydroseeded within the next 2 weeks. And so the current conditions do reflect that the actions outlined in that email have occurred for the most part. So what you're looking at in the right-hand picture is that additional basin area that I was talking about. So that's freshly dug, which is why that is in that condition. And this is the existing catch basin in the swale area where the silt fence has been repaired, and they've installed hay bales again and additional stone up the swale area. So this is above the top of the swale. You can see it in the background of the picture. And apparently I did not throw up a really good picture of the actual stone in the swale, but that area has been basically fully lined with stone at this point.
But
so for this site, my biggest thing is they're pretty much done. They just need to get it seeded and stabilized, so it's not a problem. And I don't see any reason why they can't do that in the time frame they've outlined. I was drafted an email, but I have not sent it yet, requesting that they add erosion controls along the driveway, as you can see in the left-hand picture, where there's been some sediment coming into that drainage area until it's stabilized. So I plan on sending them that update as well.
This is Commissioner Bassman. It looks like there's a game plan. Looks like they're moving forward relatively quickly to resolve the issue. I mean, am I articulating correctly? The NOV might be a little overkill here.
This is Commissioner Boda. I agree. I mean, I think if they've been responsive and they're doing the things that we would have enumerated anyway, and there is
Right.
a last step, I think that if they don't do that within the next couple of weeks, you could issue it ahead of the meeting.
Yeah.
But if they continue to progress, checking off their check boxes, then I think we're okay.
You okay with that, Jamie, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay. Any commissioner feel differently? Moving on.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland agent. I don't know if it's fair because the applicant or the property owner was present before and they're not now. So I won't ask for that clarification right now. That item has already been handled tonight.
Okay. NOV 122, is that done? 122.5C Chestnut Street, removal of trees and the deposition of material.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland agent. I just sent this out yesterday, so I don't expect anyone's here. I do not know who one person in the meeting is. If anyone is here, please let us know. But the mailing address was Madison. I sent it out yesterday. I don't expect that they've received it, but I wanted to let the commission know I was made aware that some trees were removed along Route 1 within/along a watercourse area that also functions as a drainage ditch. And that sections of the trees were sitting in the wetland area. This was a complaint that was made to the state DOT. Let me see if I can find the pictures. And the sections of the trees are kind of blocking the flow of water. So I wanted to, let them know that they did activity that required a permit. and B, have them, they had started to remove the sections of wood by hand, and I wanted to tell them to continue to do that so that there weren't any flooding issues for neighbors.
This Commissioner Baskin, was there any verbal communication?
No, I have not talked with the property owners at all.
Okay.
I don't know if somebody else did, and that's why they were removing the sections of wood. But I have not had any correspondence with them directly. And this was, oh boy. I don't know what's happening with my computer right now. So I think I'm screen sharing.
You are.
Okay. So you can see the activity here in this picture. Since this picture was taken, I did drive by, and a fair amount of this wood has been removed and is stacked along the back of the house. So I did issue a notice of violation, telling them that they had done regulated activity that required a permit. And I requested that they attend the October meeting, since there's no chance that they could attend tonight's, but I did provide them with the information to attend on the off chance that they got the correspondence. So.
Are we looking for, Commissioner Bassman, are we looking for mitigation efforts?
So I think the activity is actually on the state property. So I'm not sure to what extent we can expect.
Why not?
That and I feel like it might be easier to assess once all the wood sections have been removed, to actually see what the impact has been. I would think that the commission would want to look at making sure the area is stable. So making sure that if there's been any ground disturbance, that's stabilized. I believe when I was looking at the pictures, and it looks like the stumps are still in place, and I can't imagine they'd be looking to do anything with that. So hopefully I'll hear from them soon and be able to have a conversation with them, and we'll have more information for the next meeting.
We'll leave it at that.
Jamie, this is a question, Commissioner Begman. Is the water course underneath all of those stumps? Is that where the water is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was like a ditch between the road and the house?
Yeah, so there's a drainage ditch right in here. And there's just a bunch of different sections of it, like the tree trunks and whatnot, which they were removing by hand without equipment. So I was glad to see that. I didn't contact them though, because I was up on Route 1, and I didn't with COVID and everything, I didn't want to approach them, and them being in the backyard. So.
Okay. Other business, we have a meeting scheduled for 2022. Can you just put that up on the screen, Jamie?
Amy Frederick in the Wetland agent. Let me pull that up. So I did confirm that the fire station headquarters meeting room will be available moving forward for the commission to meet at, which would make it easier for BCTV to record and broadcast. So this is our draft meeting schedule, assuming that you guys are okay with it. We can take a vote on it tonight if you guys are comfortable, or we can email it out to everybody and put it on the agenda for October.
Why don't we email it, since Commissioner Rose is not present this evening, and we can then vote next month, hopefully after everybody's had a review. Okay, Jamie?
Yep, sorry.
We have a fee revision subcommittee, which we didn't have. Scheduling issues, I guess. And we continue to be, I think, frustrated trying to pull this thing together. I I'm not sure it's worth having a subcommittee review the material. I think we're at a point in time where we should present it to the full commission for review and move on. So I think since Eric is not present this evening as well, we need to get an opportunity to converse with him, Jamie, and structure something for October review.
So try and meet with Eric as one more last subcommittee meeting.
One more time,
and then
sign
put
off
it on
on
the
what we
agenda
do,
for
and then present it to the full commission.
at the October 14th meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Seems like that October 14th meeting is a little heavy, maybe.
Agent approvals?
32 Flat Rock Road Extension, IW number 210805. I had approved an above ground pool earlier this summer, and they wanted to do a deck extension off of their existing deck to connect to the pool. So I did that administratively. The activity wasn't any closer to the wetland than the pool was.
Okay. Finally, we have some issue with Chestnut Street draining and flooding.
Yeah, Chestnut Street drainage / flooding. I put that on there as an announcement. I received a complaint about flooding on Chestnut Street in the area behind the Kia, which is 205 North Main Street. There was concern that it could be from the Kia development. There was also concern that it could be from other activities of filling. So this is right around the corner from where the sections of trees were in the water course. So there's, I think, many different factors that could be in play here. And I've been talking with the town engineer about this, and also with the DOT, obviously, a little bit because of the complaint. So we're going to kind of look into what the situation is and what maybe can be done. And maybe whether there's anything that needs to happen with the state drainage. So I'll keep you posted if there's anything new, but I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that issue. I had an impression that some people might want to attend and talk to it this evening. So I wanted to make sure they had an opportunity to be able to bring it to the commission's attention as well. But again, I don't think anyone's here for it.
Silence. No. Okay. Any other items Commission want to raise? If not, I bid you adieu. Thank you for attending.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks.
Karina, wait. We had a motion. Who seconded?
Who made that motion? Dick, I hear you make that motion?
I made the motion, yes.
And did you also second it?
I'll second it.
There we go. Good night.
Have a good evening,
night.
everyone.
All in favor?
Have a good night, all.
Night.
Aye.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.